card is number 13, and it's story. And before I read it, I want to just give you the heads up that story is my very favorite thing in the world. Well, actually, no, there's lots of things that I really love, but yeah, story has a very special place in my heart, and I'll talk a bit about that later. But right now I'll read you this card, and then we'll launch into a bit of a prayer and a bit of a chat about story. Okay. Your story contains riches that, when shared, can enhance and heal lives. You are the sacred word woven with purpose and grace into the story of human existence. Embrace your stories and unique role in the larger story, weaving words and actions of love and meaning into the sacred beauty of life. And that's what the card looks like. It's a very exciting card, actually, quite powerful. So story. So the reason that I'm so passionate about story is because I have a bit of a different take on how I believe story works for us in our lives, and that it's perhaps not what we always thought it was. I think lots of Indigenous people are very clear about what story is and why people's stories must be shared. And yes, you know, it's a bit like song lines in the Aboriginal culture. Our First Nations people here in Australia, they're very committed to helping us to understand song lines and the importance of story in community. And I think, you know, there's a few bits in this actual message that really sort of shape that landscape, you know, talking about the weaving and how it creates a larger story. So, you know, in the last 12 months, I've been exploring past life stories and extending narratives within those timelines. And that's been such a powerful, powerful experience. On the last story that I shared of one of my lifetimes, I could actually feel the archetypal forces moving through the back of my heart chakra out into the group where I was sharing the story. And how amazing is that? And one of the things that often comes up when we have to share our stories in this context around past lives is that, you know, they become very intimate to ourselves, you know, like that we hold them quite precious. And I heard myself saying to someone once around that, you know, the whole purpose of story is to be shared. So once we really get that, we stop being shy about our stories, and that, you know, our story contains archetypal forces that serve humanity. They are the forces that shape our cultures and give us something to long for, to belong to. Yeah, so there you go. As you can tell, I'm quite passionate about story. But, you know, let's take a moment and just bring our hands together and take a deep breath. And we give gratitude today as we commune together. It's one larger story in the story of planet Earth and the cosmos. We are members of that family as well. So we take a breath and give gratitude for that breath, and give gratitude for all of our stories. Yeah, so my story is now connected to your story. And so that story expands, and we learn to grow from the values and the archetypal attributes within those stories. And as we take another deep breath, we reflect on the story that is being shared on the planet at the moment. Just one of many stories. You know, we have some stories that are stories of conflict, division, and hatred. These are stories that we must all overcome as a united family on planet Earth, our Mother Gaia. Let's take another deep breath. In today's session, we're going to, really embrace the concept of creating a new story, a new narrative. Like any new culture, it takes perseverance and the right environment to be able to create a culture that supports the people who live in that environment. So let's take that into our hearts today and nourish our spirit with the beautiful gift of story. And so it is. Thank you. That was delightful to be able to sit and commune with you with the presence of story. And I'm just going to share a story with you of how the whole archetypal concept came to me, and that it was quite a surprise. Again, one of those things that was significant, extremely significant in my life, but not necessarily planned. Well, definitely not planned. I've shared that I was an image consultant once, and I used to be a hairdresser as well, and had a few salons. And one of the things that I used to do was staff training. And we'd invite people in to have their hair done, and we'd, the staff would be educated around the styling of that person's hair, cutting and styling. Now, we'd be standing around the client, looking into the mirror, looking at her facial structure and her hair type and all that sort of thing. And and then I would say, so what is it that you see? What's the essence, the beauty, the actual beauty of this woman? But what I was really saying, what's her hidden story? And it's not until many, many years later that I realised that I was seeing archetypal stories in the mirror, which is really a portal. I didn't realise that at the time. I just thought I was just, using my imagination. But in fact, I was the only one at the time with a group of probably 6 people who could see that. So, and I'm not blowing my trumpet, just wanting to just share that story is a much more expanded level of consciousness than we think. I know that people today are using story for marketing and all sorts of things like that. And sadly, I think that waters down the power of story. So back to the mirror. So what I could see in the mirror was that this woman had the essence, she had like a gypsy style about her. And now I realize. So what is story? Why do we love it? And how does it benefit us in our lives? Well, one of the things that comes to mind is a scene in the movie Dances with Wolves. And Kevin Costner wakes up one night and hears the buffalo and informs the tribe, the Indian tribe, that the buffalo are coming. And they all go and they do the whole buffalo thing. And But after that, there's another scene where they go to the teepee and they all sit around the fire in the teepee and they tell stories. And the young men, not young men, actually young boys, keep asking him to tell them the story of how it happened, the buffalo story. And he's sort of saying, oh, you know, I don't want to go in there again tonight because they're going to ask me to do the story again. Now, that got me thinking. I was thinking, wow, so let's just unpack that for a second. So he's telling the story. So why would the boys want him to keep telling the story? Well, my take on that is that the more that they hear that story, the more that it becomes part of their story. And, you know, like I said before, Indigenous people really do understand the benefit of that. You know, here in Australia, we call it yarning. Aboriginal people call, you know, sitting around talking and sharing stories is yarning. And you know, interesting that the yarn is like a piece of thread where we just keep, you know, like I'm going to go like that with my hand, where we just keep threading our stories together because we're listening to them and integrating them into our own story. And yes, it's a valuable and cherished treasure that we have. And I hope that we don't lose touch of being able to talk in oral story, opposed to just seeing things on the screen all the time. You know, great stories have amazing themes, universal themes that teach us about ourselves and about society and make sense of you know what it is that we're here to do. So yeah, that's one of the things that I'm really passionate about within story. And like I said before, I could feel those archetypal forces moving through me. And so that sort of also gives you the understanding that perhaps story isn't something that we make up ourselves. It's actually a story that's wanting to come through us and gift it to the world or to humanity. So it lives in a different dimension. And if you've ever if you've ever spoken to a writer and they say that, you know, they'll be writing a novel and at some point the character or the characters come alive and start writing the story, which is really fantastic and an amazing experience. So where does that come from? If you're not making it up, so to speak, you're actually allowing yourself to enter the unknown and let it pour forth through you. So, you know, like any channel or musician, anybody who is improvising is allowing that to occur. So that's our word for today, is story. And I hope it just gives you some inspiration around, you know, what is the story that you're telling yourself at present? What's your old story? And perhaps, you know, with this 888 portal, we can start creating a new story for ourselves, for our community, and for our planet.